بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. I just would like to welcome all of you in this last class for Wednesday, April 22nd, 22. Actually, not last class. We still have two more classes going to be review, but this is going to be the last chapter of the Greenburg textbook. This is Management 5 to 12, Organization, Behavior, and Leadership. And today we are going to go through the last chapter, which is chapter 16, Managing Organizational Change, Strategic Planning, and Organizational Development. Therefore, today we are going to go through management of delta change, okay, and strategic planning, plan, okay, and organizational development. We will be talking about something, three concepts together, okay, management of change, and we will be talking about strategic planning and organizational development as a conclusion for this important course and this important text. Now, when we talk about the change, okay, the change comes just like a big wave. And this big wave, unless you are ready, you can swim, you are well situated, it will swap you. It will wash you. Change, two ways of dealing with change. You either sit there and wait for the change to happen and you don't know what's going to happen to you or your company, or you create the change. The best way is to deal with the change is you anticipate the change and you create the change. And that's why the change is linked a lot with the strategic planning. Organizational development will give us tools to deal with these changes. This is going to be very interesting chapter again that we will be talking about, okay? And now, historically speaking, if we look at the changes since the Industrial Revolution, there has been lots of changes before the Industrial Revolution, and then after, and the Industrial Revolution by itself is a change because they replace the machineries with the human and doing industries, and therefore it was a big change or radical change. And then we have changes after Industrial Revolution until this time, and there has been lots of changes being done since the Industrial Revolution. Now, when it comes to change, the message is very clear: change or disappear. Unless you're ready for the change, unless you adapt to the change, your company or organization will disappear. Example, Jaguar, the British car. It has been sold to Ford Motor, but Ford struggled with it. Then it was sold to Tata, the Indian auto company. Some companies swallowed up others over the years, like Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Porsche are now subsidiaries of what? Volkswagen. Very interesting. These are all changes. Now, in another example, in 2010, okay, General Motors, okay, was liquidating Hammer cars and Hammer cars. It was good car, nice car. They converted from military into civilian car or UV car, but it was discontinued in 210. Ford also discontinued the Mercury brand. Therefore, these are changes always happen, takes place for several reasons, okay? Now, change is a global phenomenon. Study of more than 12,000 managers from 25 countries. They ask to identify the major changes in the last 2 years. They ask these managers. And they say that it is large restructuring, mergers, acquisition, and reduction in employees. They always reduce to cut the cost. That was challenge. And international expansion. When they expand, they usually don't have enough budget for expansion. So these are the major challenges: large restructuring, mergers, acquisition, reduction in employees, and international expansion. Now, evidence suggests that organizational change is occurring all over the world. We will see lots of changes after the corona COVID-19. Right now, we are living and witnessing big changes. Big changes is going to happen in the business, in the social structure, the way we even look at life because of what? Corona COVID-19. I was just watching the news. Some of the major companies in the US and Britain, they are just cutting everything. Work style is going to change. It's going to be very interesting. And, we cannot talk in a more better time about changes as much as we talk right now. And by the way, we are still enjoying nice rainy weather these days, and this is something very, very, very nice. Now, the nature of change process. What are the targets of change, or what exactly is changed? We have changes in organizational structure, changes in technology, or changes in people. These are the targets of change: organizational structure change. We change the organization structure, and we change the technology, or change happen to people themselves, okay? Now, changing in people involves the 3 steps. They call it unfreezing, okay? Changing in people itself involves 3 steps: unfreezing, change, and refreezing. And sometimes managers use with this is the 3 steps, or the 3 steps in involving a change in people, which is unfreezing, which is recognizing need for change, changing, implementing plan change, and refreezing, accepting a newly charged state. Sometime before we introduce a change, managers use some techniques, even though changes, to anticipate a change when change is not happening or change, they try to test the people, and they use certain techniques. You remember we talked about the grapevine, that they put some news that this is going to happen, and they just would like to test the organization, and these are kind of isha'ah. They put it in purpose, okay? And they call it grapevine. Sometimes it's intentional, okay? They put intentional rumor, okay? This is the organization itself to find out the feedback from the people. If it is people don't, if they have, if they don't say anything, say good, you can go ahead and do it, like cutting salaries. If people come and to the management said, "Oh, what are you doing?" Then they said, "No, no, no, we didn't. That's a rumor." Okay, this is called the grapevine. Same thing they use with the change. Okay, and they use something called, especially with the first during the first step, which is unfreezing, which is recognizing the need for a change. They have something called, sometimes manager use the approach of, during this unfreezing stage, they call it doomsday. And doomsday is defined as the practice of introducing change by suggesting that a crisis likely to take place. Just preparing the people. Therefore, this is the definition of doomsday. Okay. Then we have the magnitude of the change. Okay. Magnitude of the change. This is if it is major or minor. If it is minor, we call it first order change. If it is major, we call it second order change. And this is the degree or magnitude of the change. He gave you a nice example here, like first order change. If a restaurant add a new burger to the menu, they just add a new meal, or to the or a new burger or a new hamburger to the menu. This is a minor, and it's called for first order change. Now, second order change is when the restaurant launch global expansion of operation. Global expansions, lots of commitment and money. You are going to open overseas. This is second order change, and this is major. Therefore, the magnitude or how much is changed, we have a first order change, and this is change that is continuous and natural and involves no major shift in the way organizational operates, just like introducing new hamburgers. Second order change, which is radical change, major shift involving many different levels of organization and radical change, major shift involving many different levels of the organizations and many different aspects of the business. And this is, as we said, the example that we brought if we are going to open restaurants, branches overseas. Now, unplanned change forces. Unplanned change forces, we have shifting employee demographics, performance gap, government regulation, global competition, fluctuation economic condition, and advance in technology. Almost all of them are self-explanatory except the performance gap. What do you mean by performance gap? Performance gap is the difference between actual and planned. It could be negative or it could be positive. This is called performance gap. If you didn't do as well as expected, this is negative. So because of war, because of corona, your profit goes down. This is performance gap, go down. If you did extremely well for other reason, very promising, and this is called better. Therefore, it is always better to under deliver, over promise and under deliver. You have to be careful of over promising and under delivering. Don't overpromise. Don't tell people we are gonna try to make it as a surprise and something good for them. Okay, it's very, very important. This is what we call performance gap. Okay, now forces. Why does unplanned changes occur? Unplanned changes are shifts on organizational activities due to forces that are external in nature, those beyond the organizational control. Several forces lead to unplanned changes, as we said, shifting employees' demographics, performance gap we just explained, which is a difference or the change between the planned and the actual, and government regulations, global competition, fluctuation or fluctuating economic conditions, and advanced technology or breakthroughs. Now, what are about the strategic planning? This is we talked about the change. We have to be prepared for the change by doing what? By doing our strategic plans. Strategic planning, the process of formulating. Strategic planning, how do you see your future? How do you see yourself a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 5 years from now? These are called strategic planning, okay? The process of formulating, implementing, and evaluating decisions that enable an organization to achieve its objective. Strategic planning, as we just defined, is the process of formulating, implementing, and evaluating decisions that enable an organization to achieve its objectives. Strategic planning. There are basic assumptions about strategic planning. It is deliberate, occurs when current objectives can no longer be met, and new organizational objectives require a new strategic plan. Acquisition, merging, getting into new market, okay? Therefore, as we said, basic assumptions about strategic planning. It is deliberate, occurs when current objective can no longer be met, when new organizational objectives requiring a new plans. About what do companies make strategic plans? Strategic planning targets are product and services and organizational structuring. Sometimes you do downsizing. You make the company a bit smaller or cut through edges and size, downsizing, or right sizing. You keep it as it is, doing very well, thank you very much, bringing great profit. Or outsourcing. What do you mean by outsourcing? Anything somebody else can do it for you better and cheaper, you go ahead and give it to it. Example, Aramco. Their core business is what? Oil exploration. Anything else should be or could be outsourced. When Aramco starts long time ago in Saudi Arabia, 50, 60 years ago, they didn't have enough infrastructure, services. Aramco had to put hospital, have to build small cities, have to even put broadcasting TV and radio. Aramco is an oil company. Now, after 50 years, they said, It is not our business to do TV. We made it as entertainment for our employee in the 50s, where at that time there were no TV stations in the area. It's not our job. Now, thousands of TV. They cut their TV production, or they cut TV programs, I think just before the 70s. And right now also, anything they can outsource and could be done better, more professional, and with this cost, they do it. And therefore, outsourcing, concentrating in your core business, and anything else, you should outsource it or give it to somebody else to do it for you. This is the outsourcing, very important. Okay. Now, definition of outsourcing: it's the practice of eliminating parts of organization that focus on non-core sector of the business and hiring outside firm to perform these functions instead. Three major type of outsourcing. There are also part of outsourcing is what we call offshoring. There are three types of offshores or offshoring: service offshoring, product offshoring, innovation offshoring. Definition of offshoring is short for offshore outsourcing, the practice of using outsourcing service overseas or through overseas companies, which is again offshoring. Short for offshoring outsourcing is the practice of using outsourcing services of overseas companies. Strategic planning. Strategic planning process is 10 steps. Start with defining goals, defining the scope of a product and service, assessing internal resources, what resources do I have, assessing external environment, what environment I'm working with, analyzing internal arrangements, and assessing competitive advantage, we'll talk about it, developing competitive strategy, communicating the strategy to stakeholders, implementing the strategy, and then evaluate the outcomes. If succeeds, you stop the process. If not, you go back to step one, which is defining the goals. Therefore, strategies, planning, process, which is making changes happen, defining the goals, defining the scope of the products or service, assessing internal resources, assess external resources or environment, analyze internal arrangement, assess competitive advantage, develop a competitive strategy, communicate the strategy to stakeholders, implement the strategy, and evaluate outcomes. Competitive advantage, defining by the benefit enjoyed by an organization to the extent that customer perceive its product or service as being superior to those of another organization. Competitive advantage, what is the thing that you have other people don't have? Technology, quality, good product or service, okay? Stakeholders, defined as an individuals or groups or group in whose interest an organization is run. What are those individual groups that have their interest to have these organizations running? Resistance And these are the various competitive strategies: marketing or market sharing increase strategy, profit strategy, market concentration strategy, turnaround strategy, and exit strategy. Resistance to change or maintaining the status quo. Defining resistance of change or resistance to change is the tendency for employees to be unwilling to go along with organizational change based on some combination of individual and organizational barriers. People, it's a human nature to resist change. They don't like things to be changed. They always like to live in their comfort zone. Now, individual barriers to change. Economic insecurity, they're always afraid that, salaries will cut or will be out of job, therefore economic. Fears of unknown, it's human nature. Anything unknown, as a human, we always fear of the unknown. Threats to social relationship. Again, this is barrier to change. If things happen, I might get a conflict with my employees, with my follower, or and I lose people because of that. Also habits. Okay, if you are, you just do certain habits at work, you are afraid that this habit is going to change. You always, again, said we always like to live in our comfort zone. Change take you out of your comfort zone. Therefore, there is a human natural resistance to any change. Failure to recognize the need for change. Said, no, we are doing fine for the past 10 years, so we are doing just fine. But unless you are changed, this big wave is going to come and wash you. Therefore, you have to anticipate change or create change yourself. Organizational barriers to change. We have what we call structural inertia, work group inertia, we will just explain, threats to existing balance of power. Maybe people will lose some power, okay? Therefore, they resist to change. Previously unsuccessful change effort. If you had previously done unsuccessful effort for change, people will change. People will afraid of that. Structural inertia, okay? Structural organizational barriers to change. Structural inertia is defined as organizational forces acting on employees, encouraging them to continue performing their jobs in certain ways, thereby making them resistant to change. Work group inertia is forces within a group that encourage employees to perform their jobs in certain ways, thereby making them resistant to change. And again, we said threat to existing power or balancing of power and the previously unsuccessful change effort. صدق الحق الله أكبر. Okay. Readiness for change. When will organizational change occur? This is dividing people of accepting change and active resistance. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And we have people indifferent or indifference. they don't care. And we have passive سلبيين resistance. For those who accept, we have people are very much enthusiastic about the change or cooperative. Then you go to the people passive resignation, just leave. Apathetic, they don't care, لا مبالي. Indifference again, area, doing only what is ordered, not learning, passive resistance, protesting, يبدأ يعارض, slowing down, he slowed down his work. Then you go to active resistance, taking time off, he does job, doesn't show off, take off, he wait to see what's going to happen. And extreme active resistance, making intentional mistakes to hurt the job. This is very bad. And then they deliberate sabotaging. Sabotaging is what? تخريب يعني. So this is the resistance to change. Resistance to change, when will organizational change occur? Now, whether or not an organizational change will be made depends on the people beliefs regarding its relative benefits and costs. The benefits are reflected by three considerations: amount of dissatisfaction with current condition, whether I like the change or not, ability of desirable alternatives, do I have better or much more alternatives, existence of a plan for achieving a desired alternative, do I have good plan to achieve these alternatives. Factors affecting resistance of change, we have what we call resilience or getting better, أو التعافي. Resilience, extent to which people bounce back adversity. And then other factors are information about change. Do we have enough information about the change so that I take the unknown factor of it? Specific facts about the change. Changing self-efficacy, our ability to function effectively despite the demand of the change. How can we resist the organizational change? Or how can resist organizational change to be overcome? Changing organizational or changing resistance, you shape political dynamics. How do you deal with employees politically? You change that. Identify and neutralize change resistance. Find those people who make and create resistance, bring them, talk to them, try to convince them and make them ideal or neutral. Educate the workforce. Tell the workforce, look, this change is good for you as much as it is good for the company. It's not going to take your jobs. We are going to bring these new machines. It's going to help you. Therefore, educate the workforce. Involve employees in changing effort. Tell the employee, what do you want us to do? You tell us and we will do it. Okay? Get them involved. Reward constructive behavior. People who are enthusiastic about the change, reward it so that it will make good example for other people. Take situation into account. Always don't underestimate people, situation, or environment. Always put that into account and consideration and think about it and deal with it very, very professionally. Again, how can resistance to change, to organizational change be overcome? Gain leadership support, identify and neutralize changing resistors, educate the worker, sell the need for organization. Involve employees in changing effort. Reward constructive behavior and create the concept of learning organization. Let's first talk about sell the need for the change, and then we'll talk about the concept of learning organization. Selling the need. Okay, you from lower level supervisor, you try to sell the idea to top management. Look, we need this technology, we need to get advanced, we need to advance the process, we need better facilities, selling the idea, okay? By packaging moves, tying issues to value goals, involvement moves, involving other people in the idea. Ask people, what do you think? What shall we do? Then process move, presenting the idea to the at the opportune time. You have to present the idea at the proper time. You cannot just come, you have to choose appropriate time to present the idea from lower management to upper management. Now, creating learning organization. Learning organization is organization that is successful at acquiring, cultivating, applying knowledge that can be used to help it adapt to the change. By establishing commitment to change, adapt, an informal organizational structure, develop an open organizational structure, and take the situation into account. Creating a learning organization, establishing commitment to change, adapt an informal organizational structure, and develop an open organizational structure. Now, concept of organizational learning, as much as it is true for you when you leave this university, you should be in a continuous learning process. Learning process doesn't stop here. You should, at your work, develop your career, attend conferences, attend short courses, do your master, or you do PhD, or you do higher degree. It is always continuing process for you as individual. As much as this is true for you, should be also true for what? For the organization. Organization should be like a human being in a continuous learning process. Very, very important. And this is why part of a preparation for the change. If you are in continuous learning, you will anticipate the change and you will be ready for it. Okay, I'm gonna stop here, okay, and take our break so that we can do our prayers, and then we are going to continue after the break. Thank you very much, and I will see you just after the break.